Thank you for joining us for EMBCA's St. Catherine Monastery in Sinai, History, Legacy, and Present Challenges webinar panel discussion. My name is Lou Katsos, EMBCA's president, and I will be moderating today's panel. Our distinguished panel includes Hero Monk Theophilos Pantokratorinos of the Holy Monastery of Pantokrator at Mount Athos. We have Professor Johannes Niehoff-Panagiotidis of the Free University of Berlin, and Jurist Dr. Anastasios Nikopoulos, law historian of the Free University of Berlin. At the foot of Mount Sinai, where tradition holds that Moses encountered the burning bush, stands St. Catherine Monastery, officially the Sacred Monastery of God Trodden Mount Sinai. Founded in the 6th century by Emperor Justinian I, it has been continually inhabited for nearly 1,500 years, making it the oldest functioning Christian monastery in the world. Built as both fortress and sanctuary, the monastery became associated with St. Catherine of Alexandria, a 4th century martyr whose relics are venerated there. Over time, it developed into a renowned center of pilgrimage, scholarship, and art. Its library, second only to the Vatican in age and importance, preserves manuscripts in Greek, Syriac, Arabic, Coptic, and other languages, including the sacred Codex Sinaiticus. Its Byzantine icons, many preserved from the era of iconoclasm, are among the greatest in existence. The monastery also became a symbol of coexistence. A firman attributed to Prophet Muhammad guaranteed protection and religious freedom for the monks. And to this day, local Bedouins communities see themselves as its guardians. This harmony, coupled with the importance to Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike, makes St. Catherine's a rare place where faith traditions meet. Yet the monastery today faces pressing challenges. Security concerns in the Sinai have limited pilgrimages, affecting both monastic life and the livelihood of surrounding Bedouins. More complex are jurisdictional tensions between church and state. Canonically, St. Catherine's belongs to the Patriarchate of Jerusalem, and its abbot holds the title of Archbishop of Sinai. Yet the Egyptian government increasingly treats it as a national monument and tourist site, asserting control over administration, land, and conservation. UNESCO World Heritage status granted in 2002 affirms the monastery's universal value, but also gives Egypt stronger grounds to intervene. From restoration oversight to land disputes, the monks often see such actions as encroachments on their autonomy. At stake is the delicate balance between protecting global heritage and preserving the monastery's character as a living religious community. Despite these pressures, St. Catherine's endures. Its monks continue their rhythm of prayer as they have for 15 centuries, safeguarding a spiritual and cultural legacy that belongs not only to the Orthodox world, but to humanity. Fragile because politics and law threaten its independence, yet resilient because it has withstood empires and invasions, the monastery remains both monument and beacon of faith. For Orthodox faithful worldwide, from Hellas and Russia to the Middle East, Europe, and the Americas, it remains a touchstone of continuity. Pilgrims still journey to Sinai, strengthening the bond from this ancient desert monastery and the wider Orthodox diaspora. In this paradox lies an enduring importance, not relic, but witness, reminding the world that sacred heritage must be protected and reverenced as well as law. It is these issues, the monastery's ancient heritage, its living spiritual role, and its modern legal and political challenges are among the things that this panel will explore today. So I have the honor of introducing our first panelist. He is Hierro monk Theophilos Pantokratorinos, who is a graduate of the Theological School of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, holder of a master's degree and a doctorate from the University of Humanities in Strasbourg. A monk at the Holy Monastery of Pantokratoros since 1996, he serves as secretary of the Monastery of Pantokratoros, chief secretary of the Holy Community of Mount Athos, and representative of the monastery in the Holy Community from 2019 to date. In addition, he is the author of many things, including Firman Judicial and Administrative Decisions, old translations of Ottoman documents held by the Holy Community of Mount Athos from 1547 to 1890. Thank you, Monk Theophilos, for joining us today.
It's a honor for me to invite it from you, and thank you very much. I must say that I'm feeling that I don't worthy to speak about this the spirituality of Sinai, but I think that this is the most important because this is that the world needs today. The world needs to find a point of reference, to find something real, truth, and this experience, spiritual experience, who's coming through the desert of others, who is still living now there in Sinai. There are fathers who still alive. This old tradition, this is the most important, and we must preserve and make all that's possible for continue this life. So I wanted to share with you some thoughts about this spirituality of Sinai, because Mount Sinai is both a historical and mystical landscape for Orthodox spirituality. It's where Moses encountered God in the burning bush and received the law. Elijah fled the encountered God in the still small voice. Was for me Avras Leptis. Thus, Sinai becomes the symbol of the meeting place between God and the human heart, the ascent from slavery and confusion to divine illumination, the paradox of God's transcendence and immanence. The bush burns, but it not consumed. For Orthodox spirituality, this is not just geography, but inner geography. Sinai is the human soul purified and illuminated so as to encounter God. The Sinai monastic tradition, centered at St. Catherine Monastery, is one, as you just told, of the oldest continuous monastic community in the world, founded officially in the 6th century under Emperor Justinian, but the monastic life is present since the 2nd century. Its spirituality is characterized by stillness, ησυχία, silence of the mind and heart before God, repentance and humility, the latter toward union with God, hospitality, openness to pilgrims and strangers as icons of Christ. This way of life embodies the biblical desert, purification through solitude and struggle. The quintessential Sinai text is the Ladder of Divine Ascent by St. John Climacus, Bishop of Sinai Monastery, written in the 7th century for the monks of Raithu and Sinai. It maps spiritual progress in 30 ranks, moving from first renunciation of worthy attachments, second, interior purification, passions, anger, lust, pride, illumination, third, prayer, discernment, dispersion, and then the union. That means the love. It's not a but a mystical ascent, the soul's journey from image to likeness, from earth to heaven, through grace and synergy with God. Sinai spirituality emphasizes apophatic theology. God is beyond comprehension. Encounter is through purification, silence, and light. Synergy, the cooperation of divine grace and human freedom, deification, theosis. The goal is not moral perfection, but participation in divine life. Scriptural encounter, the law on Sinai and the word is in the heart mirror each other. In this sense, Sinai represents both law and grace, Moses and Christ, the continuity of revelation. Later fathers, especially in the Hesychast tradition, for example, St. Gregory of Sinai and St. Gregory Palamas, took Sinai as an inner archetype. The mountain is the heart. The cloud is the divine mystery. The fire is the uncreated light. The law is the indwelling word. Thus, every Christian is called to ascend this inner Sinai through prayer, repentance, and love. Modern Orthodox elders like St. Silouan, St. Sophony, and others echo Sinai, the desert, as a place of truth before God. Ascend through humility, not ambition. Encounter with God in silence and mercy. Finally, the conclusion is the Sinai spirituality reminds us that salvation is revelation, the burning bush of the heart where God speaks, I am even today.
Thank you so much. Can you say a few words also to some of our viewers who are in Elas? I think they would appreciate just a few words in the Hellenic language, if you can, for them. Just a few words, whatever you feel up to.
Few words about what?
Λέω να μιλήσεις και για τους Έλληνες που είναι στην Ελλάδα λίγο σε ελληνικά, να αισθάνονται και αυτοί που δεν καταλαβαίνουν μπορεί τόσο καλά τα αγγλικά, να καταλάβουν τα ελληνικά, εντάξει.
Ναι. Είναι σαν να προσπαθείς να μιλήσεις για το μέλι. Είναι δύσκολο όταν μιλάς για την ορθόδοξη πνευματικότητα να μιλήσεις σε κάποιον ο οποίος δεν έχει γεύση αυτής. Μπορείς να περιγράψεις ότι το μέλι είναι γλυκό, είναι παχύρευστο, έχει διάφορες ιδιότητες, αλλά είναι διαφορετικό πράγμα όταν το δοκιμάζεις. Έτσι είναι και αυτή η πνευματικότητα που μας έρχεται μέσα από την ασκητικότητα της ερήμου. Είναι, είναι πνευματικές καταστάσεις οι οποίες έζησαν οι άνθρωποι αυτοί μέχρι σήμερα, που έρχεται αυτό σαν ένας ποταμός Πνεύματος Αγίου από την εποχή του Μωυσή και έρχεται μέχρι τις ημέρες μας, και αυτός ο ποταμός είναι αυτή η τράπεζα την οποία στρώνει ο Χριστός, η οποία τράπεζα είναι για όλους και είναι όλοι κλητοί. Αλλά όπως λέει ο Χριστός, πολλοί εκλητοί, αλλά ο λίγοι εκλεκτοί. Τρώνε όσοι κάθονται στο τραπέζι. Λοιπόν, θα ήθελα να πω ότι είναι μία πρόσκληση για να ανέβει κανείς σε αυτό το μυστικό Σινά, όπως αναφέραμε, το οποίο μυστικό Σινά είναι αυτή η ένωση με τον ίδιο τον Θεό. Και αυτή η ένωση πραγματοποιείται με τον αγώνα κατά των παθών και μπορεί να γίνει οπουδήποτε. Είτε ζει κάποιος στη Νέα Υόρκη, είτε ζει στην Αθήνα, είτε ζει στο Άγιο Όρος, είτε ζει στο Σινά. Ο Θεός είναι παντού παρόν και παντού μπορεί να ενεργήσει.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely presentation. Our next panelist is Dr. Johannes Niehoff-Panagiotidis. Okay, who was born in Germany. He's a scholar of Byzantine studies, historical linguistics, and Byzantine Jewish relations. Of Istanbul Hellenic heritage, he is fluent in multiple languages, including modern Greek, German, English, and classical Byzantine Greek. Since 2007, he has served as professor of Byzantine studies at the Free University of Berlin, following positions at the Central European University, the University of Mainz, and Freiburg University. He earned his PhD in comparative linguistics, summa cum laude, and habilitation in Byzantine and Neo-Greek philology. His research spans Byzantine historiography, Ottoman archival studies, and Judeo-Greek texts. He has held fellowships at Princeton, in Berlin, and the German Research Foundation. Recent work includes Ottoman archival research at the German Oriental Institute in Istanbul, and a guest professorship at the Boğaziçi University in Istanbul. His publications include Kini and the Glossa, translation and reception of Byzantine modern Greek and Old Spanish versions of Kalila wa Dimna, and Monks and Ottomans, Athos monasteries under Byzantine and Ottoman rule in 2024. Welcome, Yanni, and thank you again for being with us today.
Yeah, hello to everybody. It's an honor and a pleasure to see you again. Most of you I know. The first would be I would like to ask from the PowerPoint presentation, image number 8. So to begin with this, no, this is the preceding one. No, you have here in this, no, the preceding one. No, and can you go to the Umayyads, the first dynasty? We're actually at the Fatimids. Yeah, genau. No, here I prepared a tabularic overview of over all the Islamic dynasties ruling over the monastery of St. Catherine. Can we see the first from this chronological journey? Yeah, no, here you have the biggest and oldest Islamic empire by the Umayyads. No, apart from the question of the Ahnameh, of the alleged privilege by Prophet Muhammad, it is sure that Mount Sinai passed about 639 or 640, so shortly after the death of the Prophet, to an Islamic and Arabic empire. And the first one are the Umayyads, the Banu Umayyah. The capital, this is now important, is not so far away from Sinai. If you look at the geographic position, this is in Damascus. No? And the important point here is that since this time, Sinai was never ruled by a Christian power for a long time again. Napoleon's General Kleber came. No, you have a lot. No, then you have British soldiers, whatever you want, and you have a short interval with the Israeli occupation after the Yom Kippur war. But the steady domination is Arabic and Islamic. Mount Sinai is especially valuable also, and I will come back later to this, for its Arabic evidence. No, and here you have the big Umayyad Empire, stretching from Spain to Central Asia. Can we see the next one? We have the Abbasids. Now you see it's shrinking. This leads us up to the high Middle Ages, no? But you still see uninterruptedly Sinai is under Islamic rule, Arabic Islamic rule. No, the important is from all this time we have sources about Sinai, partly in Greek, if they are genuine, partly in Arabic. We have, for example, a very important Christian Arabic source from the 10th century, which is normally neglected. He was Patriarch of Alexandria, Said ibn Bitrik, who describes the monastery. No, it's not only the description by Procopius Perictismaton 5.8, which corresponds more or less to our modern situation. We have a fully fledged Arabic description of the monastery of St. Catherine's in the 10th century by Said. Said is Evtychios ibn Bitrik. This is known for a long time. And now can we see the next, please? Now we have the classical Islamic age, the so-called Islamic Middle Ages. Now, and with the Fatimids in Cairo at the center. Now the Abbasid Caliphate is vanishing, and the center of the Arabic Islamic world are the Shi'i Fatimids from Egypt, and they found Cairo. Now, Cairo actually was in the beginning a Shi'i city, at least the leading elite, and we know a lot about the relation between the Fatimids and the monks on Mount Sinai. Can we see the next one? No, here you have now the Ayyubids, the immediate successor of the Fatimids, and this is actually in the time between these dynasties, the Fatimids and the Ayyubids. You have the first existing documentary evidence. Acts, for Mount Sinai being preserved are from the end of the 12th century. No, and this means they are all in Arabic. No, I will show later a copy of one of these famous manuscripts, which gives privileges. But the disadvantage in research about Mount Sinai until now has been that they all study the old manuscripts of the Bible, which is fine. I have no objection, but these are manuscripts talking about charters, who give evidence about the social, juridical, and economic situation of these monastic complexes. So between and the Ayyubids, you have the oldest ones. No, the next, when you have a long time interval, the Mamluks. No, here, no. Now, in Mamluk time, we have now plenty Arabic evidence. We have hundreds of Arabic charters, which does not mean that they are the only one which exists. These are the only one who are known. Published with a German translation and a minimal commentary in German PhD candidate Ernst. And to be honest, the edition is quite okay, but the commentary is not so convincing, because these people normally know quite a good deal about Arabic Islamic economic history and so on. about Orthodox monasteries. So the face of Mount Sinai is always double. You have a Greek Christian, Byzantine, post-Byzantine. No, for Mount Sinai, the post-Byzantine period begins 639. Evidence. And you have an Arabic Islamic evidence, because these people, the monks, with the Arabic Islamic administration. No? And this has been astonishingly little studied, and one of the outcome of this neglect is the actual situation, because it is not clear. It is, for example, in Greece, it is mostly unclear to all people, including the government, what is the juridical status of Mount Sinai according to no, Mount Sinai is a Waqf, like Mount Athos. It is a Waqufi. So it has to, according to Sharia, in the framework of these Waqufia. No? And can we go to the next, please? Now you have the here now the Ottoman Empire. No? And you see this is much bigger, but it's stretched over southeastern Europe, including Mount Athos, Turkey, and the Caucasus. And from this we have we know we have in Mount Sinai we have about 270 Arabic Ottoman documents. Of them, this is plenty enough. No, the oldest one is directly from the conquest of Egypt by Sultan Selim Yavuz. No, an imposing figure of classical Ottoman history, and he conquered Egypt in 1516 to 17. No? And this is a charter of privileges, and which is the basis for all the Ottoman legislation on Mount Sinai. And there's also German edition and translation by Klaus Schwarz. And I checked today again in preparing this lecture. I checked the German translation. The German translation is not good. The commentary is minimal, not characterized by any knowledge of the Orthodox Church, which is actually is an impossibility. And then I checked it up. No, that Klaus Schwarz translates when the Sultan writes, "The monks are praying for my eternal or long-lasting state," maybe dynasty. He translated, they are praying for my continuous happiness, mein dauerndes Glück, and this is simply wrong. No, and it gives a wrong impression on the access of the Ottomans to Mount Athos. So this should be redone. There is urgently needed a Greek translation of this, and we have all the vicissitudines of such a Ottoman monastery, similar to Mount Athos, treated as a Waqufi. No? And then finally, can we see the next? Yeah. So you have here after 1882, you have British rule. No, actually the monarchy of Mehmed Ali, and these under these Egyptian kings until Farouk. No, until the coup d'état of Nasser, they really tried to introduce the reforms like the Greek government in Greece to Mount Athos. This means full taxation, in part taking over the possessions, especially the metochia of Mount Sinai, to give the property to the Egyptian state. And what you know from Greece, what you know from Turkey, what you know from all the Islamic countries. And this has been not studied to my knowledge at all. No, you should keep in mind that you have in the main archive in Istanbul, you have at least, I checked it once and my teacher checked it too, you have more than 100 unpublished Ottoman charters dealing with Mount Sinai and the monastery. And you have in the Egyptian State Archive, which was founded by Mehmed Ali and his successors. Mehmed Ali was from Kavala. You have hundreds of Ottoman documents with an Arabic translation quite recently. And this is the archive and also the magazine where the modern Egyptian authorities take their knowledge from. What you described, Louis, in the beginning, and maybe Dr. Nikopoulos will come back to this. The tentatives to make it a tourist center go back to the legislation of late Ottoman rule on Mount Sinai. You have from Abdul Hamid II, so we are in 1900 already. You have you have charters, and this has not been studied or published at all. So if we want to deal with the recent history of Mount Sinai, we have to look at the Ottoman documents. It is the eternal rule for everybody who studies Near Eastern history. He or she has first of all take into consideration the Ottoman evidence, which for Mount Sinai is in part Ottoman and in a smaller part also Arabic, because the Arabic provinces had the privilege of the Sultan to write in Arabic, the holy language. The neglect of this comes out, for example, if you look at the famous Ahnameh. Everybody says the first mention of the Ahnameh is by this Sultan Selim, 15, 16, or 17. And I was so curious that I checked all the Fatimid documents which exist. Can we see this document, Dr. Margaritis, which you showed with the facsimile of the Arabic document? Yeah. No, this is such a late Fatimid document. We are now about 1200. These are enormous. They are 10 to 8 meters long, and they have published in part, not all of them, by Samuel Miklos Stern in the 50s already. And it's again, he does not know Orthodox Church history. This is what Father Theophilos said. He does not know the living tradition. And in these privileges, you see the Arabic is very beautiful. This is classical Arabic calligraphy. In one of these documents, there is a direct allusion to the Ahnameh. So it existed already in the 12th century, known to the Islamic authorities. It is not an Ottoman invention, or that the Ottomans reclaimed it or whatsoever. No, so at least we are in the 12th century. So now I will go really back, or if you want to ask something. No, I hope I don't speak too long. I have my powder still in the keg.
No, please continue. This is fascinating. Please continue, and we'll come back to questions and things of that nature. This is fascinating.
Good.
Thank you.
So let's begin with the beginning. No, from the PowerPoint presentation, the first image. Now the first sources on Mount Sinai. No, can we see the next, please? Yeah. This is not exactly the first. This is at least the second, but it is not exactly dated. And this is also an interesting case because it is a report of a pilgrimage, and it is by a woman. This is by the nun, probably from southern France or northern Spain, called Egeria or Eteria, nobody knows. And she describes her visit. No, actually the manuscript is mutilated in the beginning, and then she describes her voyage, probably late 4th century, so much before Justinian. She describes her voyage to Mount Sinai. No, and she says here, no, this is in Latin, quite a funny Latin, because it's clear that she was talking something like Spanish or Provençal. No, and it was showed to us according to scriptures. And then she describes the valley, which still exists. And then she describes et trans valem apparebat mons sanctus Dei Sinai. And after the valley appeared the mountain of God Sinai. No, can we see this again? Because it's now too small. No, the first one. Yeah. No, here is the place where the mountains open. This is a good description. If you go from the Moses mountain down, no, and now she speaks Junctus est cum eo loco, quo sunt memoriae constituent. And now she describes the place where the monuments, actually the tombs of the golden calf, are showed. And now comes the salient point for my argumentation. In eo ergo loco cum venitur, ut tamen commonuerunt deductores sancti ille. In this place, when we came, it is as it was told us or mentioned to us, our holy guides, deductores. And she comes back to this later also in the, can we see the second with Egeria? No, and you can see this here. This is just, she speaks again about these holy men who were guiding them. And then she says, no, we came down, number 3, from the mountain of God, ubi est rubus, where the bush is. So this is what is even today called the Vatos, which is today inside the monastery. But the monastery, as both of you rightly said, was built by Justinian. So the question is what you have here. She mentioned it always when she is in Sinai. She was very probably an aristocratic, quite rich woman with good connections. She finds there a lot of holy men in congregations, but not a fixed monastery. And this is now a core point for my argumentation. We know that there were 74 lavras. Lavras is a loose conglomeration of ascetic cells, no, asceteria. She says, or she calls them monasteria, but also asceteria. No? But no central monastic building. And the question is, to what is this connected? No, because this is, if you look in we are now in the 3rd, 4th century, to monasticism, to the beginnings of monasticism. And I had the honor to give here in Mount Athos a couple of years ago an introduction to monasticism. The salient point is the classical place for the traditional well-fortified monastery is Egypt, the Koinobitic monastery of St. Pachomios, or the completely lonely ascetic cell by St. Antonius, who was, by the way, acting quite close to Mount Sinai, no? So more to Suez. The Lavra is classical for Palestine. And in historical tradition, Mount Sinai is close to Palestinian monasticism. We have a strong exchange between the Palestinian lavras, no? For example, the lavra of San Saba, close to Jerusalem, an exchange between San Saba and Mount Sinai. So the somehow centralistic approach of Egyptian monasticism is a secondary development in Mount Sinai. The original is a more, if you want, democratic or oligarchic structure, where the community of the monks, like in Palestine, has a strong word to say. the Egyptization of Mount Sinai is quite recent. Now, can we see the next, please? If I still have time, Louis.
Absolutely.
Now, this is what everybody knows. And you see here the wall, and this is Procopius 5:8. He describes that Justinian built a fortification for the monks. And the question is, the fortification against whom? No, so the place is not so insignificant. No, even Egeria knows, no, that the modern title of the Archbishop of Sinai is Archiepiskopos Ayas Katerinas Raisu Kefaran, or Faran Kere Raisu. No? Raisu is a Tor today. Faran is much older. The original bishop was in Faran. This is now today a nuns' monastery. And the region was important. And this is, for example, if you read the German, for example, by Moritz and others on the origin of Mount Sinai, this is highly doubtful what they write, because they don't take into account the importance of the geographic side of this. The travel between Egypt and India passed Faran was a harbor. No, and how this came that these three sites, Faran, Mount Sinai, and Ator, Raisu, were joined together is unknown. We have a Byzantine, this time in Greek, document from the 10th century, which is declared by the German Byzantinist Hans-Georg Beck by reasons which I cannot share. They are not convincing as a falsification. So they were joined together, and the abbot of this Sinai complex becomes for the three sites. No, so his title of a bishop comes from Faran originally. And if you look to this, you see in the front, no, so actually on the opposite side of the mountain, no, is the mountain, as it has been said. No, this is why it's called Theovadistos. No, interestingly enough, you have a strong Muslim pilgrimage to Mount Athos. Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai appears a lot in Muslim records on pilgrimage, but very few Jewish evidence, and I don't know, nobody knows why. No, to lots of Israeli by buses from Sharm el Sheikh, Taba, and so on. No, but we have one Ottoman document from the 17th century, which forbids Jews to do pilgrimage on Mount Sinai. No? But if you look to this photo, you have in the front, so opposite of the mountain, you have a white tower. And everybody who knows, close to the church, by the way, church by the Theotokos, for the Theotokos, it is mentioned by Procopius. This white tower belongs to a mosque. This is the only monastic complex in the world where you have a mosque built by the monks. Nobody knows exactly when this was built. The most, what I know, is beginning of the 11th century, late Fatimid time. But this is speculative. But the question is, why you have a mosque, and why do you have this fortification? Oh, this is really a Byzantine castron. Then by Ottomans rebuilt and so on. This is a classical Byzantine castron. So what? No, and this is, we know this from Procopius, but then we know this also from other sources, that even in the late 4th century, you have the first raids of the Bedouins into the region. So in the time of Egeria. So, and these Bedouins were even rebelling against Byzantium because their Orthodox queen called Maria, which is a strong word in Arabic, she rebelled against the Arian government of Byzantium in this time. Now, this means she was Christian. So we have Arabic tribes at this time already in the 4th century, who become involved into Byzantine Arianic anti-Arianic struggles, take party, and this means that the monks had to take them into consideration. So after, even before the foundation of real Sinai, of what you see here, you have Bedouin presence, and these Bedouins are so dangerous that the Ottoman Fatimid, all the evidence is full about their raids, what you can do with these people, and that they should not pillage, and it's endless. Interesting enough, we know even the names of these tribes. They are in part of Greek origin. At least their Arabic contains a lot of Greek words. For example, for Metochion, they say Ntushi, which is from Metochia, like in Cypriot dialect. And it is an eternal monument of Byzantine, Arabic, Christian, then later Islamic interference, convivencia between these groups. We have one, interestingly enough, in Israeli study in English on these on the presence of these Bedouins, but this is in general. In my humble knowledge, there is not an anthropological study on this between monks and Bedouins. Can we see the next one? It's another photo, and now you see the Jabal Musa in the and these Bedouins are called Jabali. Can we see the next, please? Yeah, and this is now something very important, and actually I don't know how much I was talking now, but this is probably the center of my argumentation. Louis Katsos said in the beginning that Mount Sinai contains Syriac, Coptic, by the way, also Georgian, and manuscript, which is all true. But one manuscript, maybe more, because we don't have a good catalog. The catalog by Kamil is not a scientific highlight. Actually, it is actually a scandal. And even the catalog by Aziz Atiyah for the Arabic manuscripts is not good. It is more a description of the measures of the manuscripts than of the content. This is not the goal of such a catalog. One of the oldest Christian Arabic manuscripts in the world is the Vaticanus Arabicus number 13. And this is clearly a Greek Orthodox manuscript, because the liturgical rubricae are still in Greek, not in this image, but they are in Greek. And on this manuscript has been done recently by Hikmat Kashuf. This is a PhD, written in English by a Lebanese Protestant, which is quite a good book. But you have also now a French one by a French Swiss lady, and this is to a high probability the oldest Arabic translation of the Gospels.
How old is that?
This is debated, as you can imagine, but the realistic estimate runs that it is not the original, but maybe copy, but one copy far from the original, so not so very far. So the translation can be older than Islam. The manuscript is about 700 in the oldest part. Can we see the next page? Oh, this is again the manuscript. No, you see, this is an archaic Arabic script. No, no, and if you know, we would like to know, and there are two possibilities. This is from Sansara, or from Sinai, or from both. And so the discussion rises. This is now you go deep into the origin of Islam. It is not only about Quran. The question is, we know this from Byzantine hagiographic sources about Mount Saba, actually Saint Saba, actually on the holy Sabas from who founded Saint Saba, that he healed the son of the chieftain of an Arabic tribe, and the whole tribe became Christian. And Mavia was a Christian, late 4th century. So what do monks if they are in the desert and have a lot of time and a piece of parchment? No, they are surrounded by people who don't know Greek. So it is my opinion, it is simplistic to say this is just a Greek monastery. Many of them were actually Arabic, Syriac, Georgian, whatever speaking. So what do? They say, oh, let's convert them to Christianity, these people. And this is what they did. No, so there is a high probability that the oldest Gospels in Arabic come from Mount Sinai. And there might be, I analyzed one page more intensively. There is a strange Arabic vocabulary, and it resembles, strangely enough, the famous Achnameh, no, in the vocabulary, because also there the Arabic is weird. No, there is a word for apostle, which you would not use normally in Arabic. There is a high probability that Arabic as a written language, pre-Islamic, goes back or to Mount Sinai or San Saba or to both. And this would explain why Mavia was a Christian. This would explain the history of San Chariton of Gaza and the Arabic words which appear in St. Jerome's life of Osios Charit or Aios Chariton. And it would explain also the many Syriac Christian words in the language of Quran. No, it is the Quran, in my humble opinion, is not just a copy or falsification, but it is highly probable that the jump, that the missing link between the Christian Arabs who normally wrote Syriac and the Christian Arabs a bit later, say 6th century, this would be fitting in the time of Justinian, who began writing in Arabic, taking into account Greek words, Syriac words, goes back to Mount Sinai. And this is then also, in my opinion, the root of the famous Achnameh. It is very clear, we know this, when Prophet Muhammad was a young man, he traveled from Aqaba to close to Damascus. And he had contact with monks. This you have in Christian and Islamic tradition. And it is not clear, if Prophet Muhammad knew about the monastery of Sinai, but it is mentioned. You have a whole surah in the Quran which is called At-Tur, the mountain. But Tur is like today, Tur Sina is a Syriac word, and it means the Mount of Sinai. And this is actually a hymn to Mount Sinai. So it's not a wonder that the Muslims in the Middle Ages did pilgrimage to Mount Sinai. No, so actually, I doubt if you can understand early Islam without knowing about Mount Sinai. Now, if the question is how genuine and what means genuinity in such a context. No, we are dealing with a very complicated manuscript tradition. You have to investigate the original, and then would be a long story. But that the Quran knows actually Mount Sinai and the presence of holy men, or maybe the holy men which Egeria met, for me is out of question. This is what I had to say. I hope I did not speak too long.
No. Your discussion was fascinating, and we'll get back to it in a second. I'd like to introduce now our next panelist. Dr. Anastasios Nikopoulos is a jurist and law historian who teaches history and institutions from Roman Byzantine and post-Byzantine law at the Free University of Berlin. He specializes in Athenian law as a researcher. He has served as a legal advisor to Mount Athos and has authored scientific studies, monographs, numerous articles, and presentations at scholarly conferences on various academic topics of the Athenian and more broadly of Byzantine and post-Byzantine law. Welcome, Anastasi, and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, Luis, for the invitation and to participate in this panel. The case of Sinai is an important case for our international institutions concerning the history, the Commonwealth regime, the Commonwealth's heritage, and the culture. Sinai symbolize this remnants, this institutional monument of a Commonwealth established by the Roman, to be continued by Byzantines, and even more by Ottomans, until the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. Under this shape, we have legal institutions to be survive until the present day. Sinai represents this heritage, this institutional heritage. Professor Niehoff-Panagiotidis described the historical evolution and the cultural evolution. Quite parallel to these evolutions goes on the institutional evolution. So the Sinai law is a real remnant, a real document of the institutional side of this development. This characteristic feature of Sinai is to be applied toward the sovereign state, which the actual day is the Egyptian state. So the rule, the recent rule, the recent sentence, the recent decision of Egyptian court violated the Sinai law, violated this institutional continuance. The status of Sinai is an international status, not only a national status concerning the Egyptian state. Because Sinai, as well Mount Athos, symbolize these continuations of the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman Commonwealth. Just the dissolution of the last Commonwealth, namely the Ottoman state, we have just only national states. Before, for approximately 2,000 years, we had this institutional shape, this institutional form, the Commonwealth, Roman, Byzantine, post-Byzantine, Ottoman. into the 20th century, we have the formation of national states, and actually now we are attempting to create a new commonwealth on the level of European Union. Under this consideration, we can understand thus the institutions like Mount Athos and Sinai are quite important to understand the institutional life, namely the coexistence, the international relationship between states, between nations during the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman Commonwealth. That is the role of Mount Athos and Sinai, even today. That is a quite summary conception of the problematic of Sinai case. That is the reason that we must protect a special status like Sinai status. Otherwise, we have just only national states with every consequence that we have the evidence of up to date the international relations, namely especially into the frame of Middle East, of the into the frame of this on this multinational, multicultural, and multi-religious world. The rule to reconsider this real the real value of this equivalence is represented by such a special status like Mount Athos and Sinai.
So, Anastasios, let me get this straight. What you're saying basically is that there should probably be a special carving out of this particular area, which to a certain degree historically has a similar characteristics of, let's say, Mount Athos, which has been protected over centuries, many centuries, millennia actually, and that the creation of modern states, whether it's in this particular case, it's Egypt, and obviously, post-Nasser, etc., with rise of nationalism, that Sinai in particular, like Mount Athos, should have a special international status. I mean, that's what I'm getting out of the conversation. Am I wrong in this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm amazed by the conversation. I have to be honest, by all of you. I'm amazed.
Yeah, I fully agree, by the way.
Yeah, I'm amazed by the conversation because we have a situation where you have a monastic community, something that was recognized as Anastasios indicated a few minutes ago, that was recognized during the Roman period, and then obviously the Eastern Roman period. I'm not even going to use the word Byzantine because I don't like the word anyway. But it was actually recognized, and not only recognized, but continued into the Islamic period, let's say, and obviously through various kingdoms, etc., into the Ottoman period, and actually into, as you said, Muhammad Ali, period, Ali period, who was an Albanian Muslim, okay, he was an Albanian Muslim, and who ruled, and
Yeah,
then
this was probably the most crucial time.
yes, yes, and what's interesting to me also is that there's all these documents that it seems Yanni and Anastasi and Hero monk Philophilos that no one has really translated some of these documents and put them into a cogent form that people could understand the history of this place. I mean, it's actually shocking to me. What's also shocking to me is how this particular place existed over centuries and centuries and was actually preserved, not only preserved by Orthodox Christians, but preserved by Muslims, okay, as something special, a special place. So let's open the discussion. And I know it's difficult because you're sitting next to Father here, and it may be a problem, but maybe we can go back and forth. So Yanya, do you want to say a few words?
Fully agree with Anastasios. No, about the spiritual matters, I'm not a specialist. No, I'm not a priest or monk. But the kernel of all this is that Mount Athos survived the Ottoman domination by becoming a Waqf. And Mount Sinai survived this by becoming a Waqf too, but much earlier. No, I found already in the Fatimid documents the juridical status of a Waqf. So nobody hinders you, nobody blocks you, nobody impedes you to transform Mount Sinai with all the metochia and the outlets in Faran and so on, especially Faran and Raisu, because this is old, in something which would be similar to Mount Athos, a protected area. No, and this is where Anastasios wrote one of his books on this. No, and the problem. This is because this is a practical problem, Louis. No, it consists in the fact that we have for Mount Athos, we have the Greek evidence in the Byzantine charters, Act Delatos, which is fine. And with the Ottoman material, it's much more difficult, but there has been done some work, including Anastasios Nikopoulos and my own. This was like a pilot project. And then you can come to international treatises and all these things.
Yeah, Yanya and Anastasia, can you explain for the audience, because many people do not understand these terms. Like, for example, the Waqf. Can either of you explain what is meant by that so the audience can understand what we're talking about with regards to to being protected and all the rest of that?
Tassos, if you want to explain what is a Waqf, I have no objection.
Yeah, that would be great.
Waqf is a technical term to describe a special status, not only religious but also cultural, legal, and historical. Waqf means no society, no individual property, under the shape of divine dedication, means the institution independent from individuals, from national or others' interests, and it means as well the continuity, the cultural, historical, spiritual continuity.
Who created the Waqf? Who created the Waqfs? Who created them?
Waqf was always ever a historical establishment. Actually, today, I doubt if someone can create a Waqf, because Waqf is essentially a historical remnant, a historical monument.
And this term came out from who? You know, where? The term.
If I may just interfere, Waqf is an Arabic word.
Yes, of course.
It's Arabic.
Yes,
And it is from classical Arabic.
which is perfect, by the way, because here we are in even with modern nations, that there has to be a respect for the Waqf, I would imagine, correct? Or no? Of course. Okay. So has anyone used that thought process to have a discussion with the Egyptian government in terms of the protection of this particular institution? Has anyone used no?
It is like this. Just to Waqf is a very old term, at least 8th century. This is Sharia. This is one of the oldest terms, juridical institution, as Anastasios Nikopoulos said, of the whole Islamic. You have Waqf in India, in Iran, in all the Islamic countries, and it means pious foundation. In Greek, it would be enai idrimata or something like that.
But within this terminology and protection, you know, we're talking about a protected site that cannot be violated by anyone, correct? And it has to be protected by everyone, okay? Because it's a recognized terminology. I'm just curious if the discussion and the dialogue in terms of the status of this particular Mount Sinai has been addressed properly from that particular perspective. Has it been? I don't know. I really don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Has it been? Have we had the discussion on an international basis to bring up this concept of the VAC and the protection of a site that's historical and every other way should be protected, to the extent as also we're talking about, for example, Mount Athos?
If Tassos wants to answer, or if not, I can answer, but as you like.
As we well know, is a trial in Egypt to be continued. It's open toward the highest Egyptian juridical court. In this trial, which has been ongoing for over 10 years, any argumentation took place about this special status of Mount Sinai. This argumentation about the Waqf character of Sinai has been not used before the Egyptian courts.
I'm kind of shocked. I'm kind of shocked by this.
Unfortunately,
I got to be honest with you, by listening to this, that it hasn't been used. And I would imagine that even, within Islam, there should be a protection. Someone, scholars should have come up and made that argument that this particular site must be preserved. This particular site should have a special carve out. Yes, Yanya, I think you were.
No stress. I just underlined your astonishment. But it is as Dr. Nikopoulos said, you should, but only to give some historical hints. Waqf were never a problem for Islam. And the most important is that Jewish, Christian, especially Orthodox, and Islamic, like a mosque or clinic or a hospital or a madrasa, they are all Waqf. They are pious. We normally translate this as pious foundation. And Anastasios Nikopoulos and myself published now the main Arabic source for Waqf, first time into a European language, which is an early Ottoman theoreticist of Sharia, Al-Halabi, so he was from Halepi, from Aleppo, and he wrote a long chapter on what is the beginning of the 16th century. And this is valid in all. Al-Halabi was printed in Egypt, printed and commented in Ottoman and Arabic in the late 19th century. So this is the absolute basis. And in all these endless discussion, in Greece about the status of Mount Athos, or the scandal of Vatupedi, or the scandal of, actually, I'm not only a bit annoyed, because this state is the first person who investigated the status of Waqf of the monasteries was Anastasios Nikopoulos. And then, because I studied Arabic philology and Ottoman philology, then I jumped in and I said to him, okay, Tassos, retranslate Al-Halabi, at least one chapter, this chapter on Waqf. And now the regulation, Louis, is very clear. The dissolution of a Waqf is forbidden by Sharia. No question. The Ottoman state, yeah, sure, sorry.
Was this argument brought up in court? Was this argument brought up in court? I'm kind of shocked. I gotta be. I'm like totally shocked by this.
Actually, when I read the Syntagma, the constitution of the Greek state for the future constitution for Mount Sinai, I was shocked, like Tassos Nikopoulos too, because I said, you say in German they are talking from the green desk because they simply don't know. And the word Waqf exists in Greek. You say Wakufi or whatsoever, no?
Let me ask you another question. Is there any documents in terms of what is the property of the Mount Sinai monastic area? In other words, there are documents that indicate the properties of the Waqf, correct? Okay.
Not only one. There are a lot. You simply have to investigate it. You have to know if I
100 documents.
There's 100 documents. So was that brought up in terms of the properties? I'm sorry?
1,000 documents in all monastery. Yeah.
Okay, so is this published anywhere? Do we know what the properties are of the monastery based on the Waqf? Do we know that by written documents?
If you don't mind, Louis, I will answer to this, because with your permission, I studied now for a long time we have only Islamic documents on Mount Sinai, and this is probably the problem. Byzantinists normally don't know Arabic. This is the problem. And specialists in Byzantine law normally don't know Arabic. This is actually simply a practical problem. You have to study hundreds of documents in Arabic and Ottomans. And now, to answer your question more concrete, we have published, not just to say published, we have published only a selection of 40 Mamluk documents for my tabulary. The publication, good, commentary, almost nothing. We have about 12 older Fatimid documents where the word Waqf appears. I studied them all. Actually, these I studied all. No? And we have published 14 of the hundreds of Ottoman documents, and that's clear, it's called Waqf. And now your question, the actual extension, yes, of course. And this is now a question of finding. No, this is a question, you do archival work and you ask where is the archive, is the material. For this process, nobody did this in Egypt. Nobody went to the archives and said, what is to be found there?
How big do we think the area actually is?
Yeah.
How big do we think? How big do we think?
No, we have long lists by the Ottomans and by the older regimes about the possessions of Mount Sinai. Kandlik Archive in Istanbul is a document with the possessions of Mount Sinai in the 19th century in Romania. All the Metochia, unpublished, not studied. I have a copy thanks to my friend Orhan Saki.
So beyond the fortification walls, how far does this, does the property go to? How far does it go?
Actually, nobody knows, because it has not been studied. But we know about now also from what I studied and what we know, and No, Katsos and Theophilos, please correct. We know they have and had metochia, very one important in the harbor of Istanbul in Baltar. They have also a small archive there. They have a lot of metochia in Cyprus, in Crete, Kritiki Kypros. They have metochia in Athens. They have metochia in Romania, in Asia Minor. No, but we have never did somebody do a systematic overview. And no, these possessions changed. No, it's like in Mount Athos too. No, and I don't want to make it even more complicated. But the thumb rule is that the monasteries, so Mount Athos, Sinai, and others, they exchange the metochia sometimes. Now we are getting slowly a picture of the metochia of Mount Athos, thanks to our projects and our activities. But with Mount Sinai, nobody knows.
But there are documents that probably have not been translated, etc. Is what I'm hearing from you.
Not probably. They have the only translated Sinaitic Islamic documents are by Samuel Miklos Stern. No, the 12 Fatimid into English. This is quite okay. There are descriptions already of possessions. No, for example, they had the harbor of Faran. They got even money from this. No, then you have the Mamluk documents, of which at least 30 are published into German. And then you have the 14 Ottoman documents. But only in the Bashbakhanlik you have at least 100 Ottoman documents dealing with Mount Sinai and the possessions.
All right. So to the extent that it's been designated as UNESCO site, and one of the things that we talked about is once you designate something, it also becomes a problem. Okay, people want to create a tourist area or whatever. So, are there plans to create hotels and things of that nature around or near this particular site, or no? There.
I may, or maybe Theophilos wants to answer.
Yes. Teofilo, do you want to answer that particular question?
So the problem is that with this development of tourism, it's not possible to have monasticism in this area. So it is very, very dangerous to stop this tradition of 1,800 years of monastic life.
Let me ask you a question, because we're here. Obviously, many of us are here in America, and we don't know exactly what's going on. But what I got from this conversation is I don't even think in Greece or even in Egypt they know what's going on. After I heard this conversation, so
just for fun, sorry for interrupting you. I know an elderly, but I'm getting elderly too now. Egyptian professor of law, who's professor of legal history in Germany, in Heidelberg. He's now about 90 years and a classical, well-educated Egyptian. Who lived many decades. He thought that Mount Sinai is a Coptic monastery.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
The ignorance. This is the eternal problem with Oriental studies. Or you know the Christian tradition, then you know Greek, which is perfectly. I have no objection against this. Then maybe you know some Syriac. And with the reorientation of Oriental studies to modern Orient, the Christians of the Near East got out of the scope. So actually, there is no comprehensive history of Mount Sinai in Islamic times.
Teofilo, let me ask you a question. What do you suggest? We had an earlier conversation in terms of what we can do here in the U.S. In terms of filing some type of documentation or things that we can get the support of the U.S. government. Are there any suggestions that you may have of what we can do at least in the United States?
I think that Egypt has the great privilege to contain this monastery in this country, and I believe that they appreciate how important it is, but sometimes we must be more careful to protect, to not lose. For example, you see the tourism who is going to Acropolis, million of people is going there. If we do the same in Mount Athos will be destroyed. The same in Egypt. You see the tourists who are going to pyramids. If you do the same in Sinai, they will destroy this living tradition. I think nobody wants this. So we must help to develop another orientation of touristic development, not in the model of Acropolis, but in the model of Mount Athos. And we must work about this. We must work in also in academic level to explore all this documentation, to evaluate it and put them into the present. We must work about the Sinai to understand the Sinai spirituality, the knowledge of the desert. If even for the Muslim who wants to understand the time of their prophet, they have the desert fathers. They have to read all this wisdom, spiritual wisdom. This is the base of our civilization. Concretely, what we can do for protect America government, one can do to protect the Sinai Monastery and all this tradition is not easy for me to tell you and to suggest you. I'm not a politician. I'm a monk. But I know that at this time there are some initiatives from people who really wondered about the future of Sinai, and they want to protect, to don't touch to this living heritage. And if you build thousands of houses in the protected area, 3, 4, or 2 kilometers far from the monastery, you will lose Sinai, and that must be stopped.
Yeah. So what you're basically saying is, obviously, if we want to maintain what Sinai is, we have to create almost a separate protected area, as everyone was talking about, similar to what was discussed before with the Vox, and in terms of the history of the area. And what you're saying is we have to stop any tourist thought processes about having a large group of people coming into that area. And you're also suggesting that it goes along the lines of what's taking place in Mount Athos, which is protected and which the community has the ability to issue permits, let's say, to come and visit. And obviously they maintain a certain level of how many people can come in to protect that spirituality, because the more people you have, the more destructive it is to what was your point, actually, is the protection of the spirituality of this particular location, which you have stated even was before the 1500 years, that in fact it was from the beginning almost of Christianity, that there was an establishment there in terms of a spiritual area, which gained prominence over time. And then you had the development of what we call right now the Sinai area. What you're also saying is we need, and everybody's saying this, we need more academic studies in terms of the documentation that exists, which creates a shock for me. I'm very shocked by hearing this, that in fact, a lot of this academic work has not been done. A lot of the translations have not been done. The translations that have been done, some of them are faulty. Okay, they're faulty. And no one within the court has gone in with some of this documentation to make an argument from a different perspective. So I'm kind of surprised. So we're learning a lot today. This was a very informative thing. What I'd like to do, if we can, is I'd like to just wrap this up. I think we should revisit this in a few months, if it's okay with everybody. I'd like to really revisit this conversation, because this conversation is very important, and we have to get other people involved in this conversation. So what I want to do is I'm going to go backwards now, and I'm not going to start with with our Reverend Monk who's here today, because I want you to end the conversation in a spiritual tone, which is really where you started. So I'm going to go back to Tasso, and Tasso, if you can just wrap it up and say a few words and your thoughts about the panel discussion we had today.
In this case, the Egypt, the sovereign state, Greece, which plays a guarantor role, and international organizations like UNESCO or United Nations. All these factors can fulfill a role of guarantor towards to the protection of such a special cultural and institutional heritage that represents Sinai. That's my main thought.
Thank you, Tasso, for that. But I will say something. After listening to this conversation, even though we have a loss in the mix, if you will, I see this as a bigger issue beyond a loss. I see that the Islamic nations themselves, okay, based on history, based on documentation, etc., they should be part of the discussion and insist that this particular area remains what it is, and also be in the dialogue to preserve this area, to prevent tourism, to maintain the spirituality of a place that has had that concept over centuries and millennia. Yanni, some final thoughts on the conversation? Yanni, are you with us?
I fully agree with. I just would like that legislation, I mean the late Ottoman legislation concerning Waqf, including Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is just an example for Waqf. In Egypt is in principle. So this means that the Egyptian state, in theory, must be interested in maintaining the Waqf.
Yes.
No, and what went wrong, this we can do in another discussion if you want. this has to do more with the developments inside the monastery and also with the developments in Egypt last maybe 50 years. But in principle, the Egyptians have quite a good book in English by a Turkish guy, Çizakçı, which is here in the Mount Athos Library on Islamic Studies here, this behind me. Çizakçı is quite a bit summary, but it is a first step. And he shows that all the Islamic nations, as you said, Lou, have a problem with the Waqf. But in principle, they must protect it. Why the Greek state or the monks or the abbot did not use the existing methods or of Sharia to protect Mount Sinai, this I have to investigate still. I will go to Cairo on the 19th of October, and for just doing research on Mount Sinai.
Thank you for that. And again, we have to have a conversation in a few months after these investigations and maybe get some other people involved also. Here, Monk Theophilo, would you like to just end the conversation? Thank you so much for discussing the most important aspect of Mount Sinai, which is the spiritual aspect of it. So your final thoughts on today's conversation.
The final word is that, like in Mount Athos, also in Sinai, no one of the monks was born. All monks came from all the world. And so we have the responsibility to protect this for the future, because this is the most important for our time. This is the hope for the future, to continue this living tradition. And thank you for your invitation.
No, thank you so much, and for this fascinating, panel. And thank you to all the panelists, really, because you opened my eyes, and I think you probably opened the audience's eyes also, because some of these things are like, I mean, to me personally, they're kind of shocking. Okay, they're kind of shocking, these issues, and the fact that within the Egyptian legal system, that some of these things have not come up at all. I find that outrageous. I find that the fact that there's documentation out there that hasn't been translated or translated incorrectly. So this is a conversation we have to continue. It's an important, extremely important conversation regarding Mount Sinai. To the audience, our next panel discussion will be on Orchidee, because this is October, and at the end of the month we have Orchidee. And again, one of the most important days in modern history in terms of European history, an extremely important day. So to the audience, thank you. And again, to the panelists, thank you so much for being with us today.
If I may just
Yes.
add a very small remark. First of all, thank you very much, Louis.
Yeah.
This was generous and inspiring. We should include, was a pity that Dito could not come, an archaeologist, because these people with their knowledge in geodesy and sites and all these, they know much. Tassos is a legal historian. I'm a historian. Father Theophilos, you know better than me. An archaeologist for the future one would be a good fourth or fifth person, because this is is also geologically, the Israelis did quite a good work on this, geographically an extremely interesting region, which is, I have never heard about this in the endless discussion in the Greek mass media about this.
Well, there's no doubt in the next panel discussion we should certainly have the archaeologists involved, Dieter involved, and all the rest of them. If there's any other names that come into your minds in terms of Israelis or even within the Greek government, we have no objection, obviously, to having a conversation with everyone. including if you find, Yanya, if you're there and there's someone from the Egyptian side that wants to be a part of the conversation, certainly we should have the conversation, because I see this conversation as an international conversation. This is something to protect, something that has been around for close to 2,000 years. You know, the way Theophilo mentioned to us. So again, thank you, and also suggest some other people, and we'll get everybody together again in a few months.
Yeah, we will stay in contact.
Thank you, everyone. This has been fantastic.
Hello.
Thank you again.
Hello from Malta.
Kalinifta.
Kalinichta.
Taxidi. Kalima Sandamosi.
Kalima Sadamos. Yes, that's all. Very soon.